everybody. Welcome to another edition of our 15.5 T3 edition. What's a T3? It's a trend, a tactic, and a tech that a leader in the industry is using right now to be successful. So this is timely and this is relevant. And if you've got a pen and paper, now is the time to pull it out because I have got a superstar with me. I'm already excited about the things he's chosen for his T3. I'm going to bring him on. He's going to introduce himself and we're going to jump into this because we have 15 minutes of your time to get all this information out to you. So let's get started. Come on in, Colin.
Hey, how are you, Teresa?
I am really great. Welcome to 15.5 CMO T3. We're really excited to have you here. I'm super excited about the choices you've made. Go ahead and let our audience know who you are, where you work, and why what you're going to share matters to them, why they should be writing this stuff down.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show today. Excited to dive in and talk very quickly about a couple of high-level things. So for context, I lead marketing initiatives for Brightview Health. We are an outpatient addiction treatment provider. We have about 90 centers through 8 states, around 2,000 employees. And the interesting thing that I think will help build context around some of my selections here are that we are trying to reach the Medicaid and uninsured population, basically folks who the traditional providers are not serving. So that means that we have a high unemployment rate among our prospective patients. Obviously, that leads to lower time in transportation. You think of traditional radio, podcasts, things like that. Generally, people are listening to those and consuming that content when they're driving to work. Well, high unemployment, low independent transportation leads to those channels not working. Same thing with billboards, right? You think about you're looking at billboards when you're driving to work. So we have some kind of interesting nuances with this population that I think make my job fun, but also make my job very challenging.
Well, challenging equals fun, if you ask me. So I think that is a very interesting use case. It makes even more interested to understand the choices that you've made for T3 today. So I'm going to bring in our slides, and we are going to go ahead and we are going to talk about the very first thing that we're going to talk about here is the trend that you've chosen, the trend that you have your eye on. So I'm going to read this for everybody, and then you're going to explain it. The pressure to ascertain and promote non-human differentiators. This one blew my mind. What does this mean?
Well, it's funny when you talk to a lot of CEOs or CMOs and you ask, what's the big difference between your organization and your nearest competitor, your closest alternative? Oftentimes it's our people. And that's a good answer if it really is your people. But the challenge that we're seeing in today's economy is that we're removing a lot of human interaction. So when I go into my ice cream parlor and I want to order a milkshake, I'm not talking to a clerk anymore. I'm actually placing that order on an iPad. Or I pump my own gas and I'm paying for it myself and I get back in my car and I don't interact with a human. So the interesting thing is we're seeing this now on a mass scale. And we're less reliant on human touch, which means we have to be more reliant on other non-human differentiators as organizations. It's something that we're kind of struggling with at Brightview from a patient experience perspective, because we do still have the human touch of a counselor, a front desk person, et cetera, but we're shifting away from paperwork into digital e-signatures and things of that nature. That's what is making me rethink this right now.
Interesting. Well, it's funny. I was just watching an article about touch points and how there are people that count human touch points, and they are striving to have less human touch points. And that's actually a whole goal, not just of the organizations, but of their clientele. Their clientele wants less human touch points, which really is counterintuitive. Like you said, we're also programmed that people are everything, and there's a whole bunch of people who don't want to have those human interactions. I guess the pandemic, showed us where that can be problematic. And that kind of being able to be streamlined and be digital and have less friction. I guess in reality, and we're seeing that everywhere as far as a trend, a lot of times human interaction is friction, and people don't love friction.
That's exactly right. What we want is self-service. We want an automated chatbot. We want to call in and we want our question answered immediately. We don't want to wait to talk to the supervisor who can actually make a decision. What we want is that quick, immediate self-service. And a quick example of this is various airlines have various tactics. Southwest does a really good job of this. If you need to cancel your ticket and get a refund, or if you need to change flights or what have you, it's all self-service. It's done independently. No other human touch point is required. Very low friction, almost immediate, versus a larger, more historic airline, let's say, where you actually have to call in and complain to somebody to have the same exact thing happen. Is that human touch point a differentiator? I would argue no. And so that's exactly what I'm talking about, which is thinking through what are our differentiators.
It's a differentiator, Colin. It's just not a positive one.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's definitely a differentiator. So where I live in Florida, we actually have 2 primary chains of drugstores. And I would tell you that's a big differentiator between the 2. One allows you to do self-checkout, which sometimes you're in the mood for. And this other chain does not even allow it as an option. I don't always want self-checkout, but I do like having the option for the days I don't feel like dealing with a line and other people. So yeah, it's definitely a differentiator, whether or not it's positive or not. Okay, great trend. And something, especially our tech counterparts too, are probably going to be keeping their eye on soon. Let's move on to are keeping their eye on too. Tech. So this is probably of your 3, this is the one I'm most interested in. Your trend, I was very intrigued by. Your tech, I want to know why you chose Memento, how you're using it, why you love it. What's going on here? Tell us about Memento.
Absolutely. Well, this one I could have chosen one of a number of technologies because I try to be not necessarily an early adopter, but definitely an early experimenter. I want to know what's going on and how I can use it to be more efficient. And I'm very fortunate in that I host a podcast called the Rethink Marketing Podcast. Episodes with guests are around 45 minutes. Well, I don't want to post a 45-minute clip on LinkedIn. So what I was doing, or on YouTube for that matter, what I was doing is I was going in and manually editing the videos, cutting them down from this 45-minute interview, adding captions and things of that nature. And now it used to take me 45 minutes. Now it takes me about 10 minutes. It runs in the background while I'm working on something else. And Memento allows me to do that, which is really cool. I upload this 45-minute file. It parses through and tells me, hey, we think these are the 4 most important moments in this video. This clip is 30 seconds. This clip is 2 minutes. This clip is 72 seconds or whatever. And it adds captions automatically. So it's been a game changer when it comes to video editing. And I would say I'm relatively new at it, but it's very user-friendly and it leverages AI, natural language processing, to go in and pick out what's the most important pieces and then segment those into various videos for use on social media, YouTube, etc.
Do you give it any prompts? Do you say, hey, I want do you give it any prompts as far as like what's the context you're looking for, and it does it completely on its own?
No, it's been doing it completely on its own.
Wow. That's amazing. And when you said it's a podcast, is it a podcast that you also record the video for at the same time? Or is it literally just an audio file?
No, for what I'm doing in Memento, I'm uploading video files. So we'll interview a guest very similar to this format where there's a video component and an audio component. The audio component, that's still being edited manually, maybe for a short period of time in the future. But that's going out to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, etc. What I'm using Memento for is LinkedIn videos and then YouTube videos, where I'm able to take that content but chop it up into various segments that I can then share out on those platforms in platform native ways.
Got it. And I was just trying to confirm that you were recording video at the same time you were recording the audio, and it sounds like you are.
That's right.
Then you just take the video file part of it and you upload it into Memento. Can you give people kind of a ballpark for cost on this so they can kind of quantify like how in reach it might be for them and their budget?
Definitely. So they have different plans. I believe the plan I'm on is $19.99 a month. So it's relatively affordable.
That's literally, we're talking cups of coffee now. That's crazy. And
when you think about the time component too.
Oh, wow.
It was taking me at minimum 45 minutes to edit a video just because that's the duration of the interview. And I might find what I wanted initially, but probably closer to an hour, hour and a half. So the fact that it's able to run in the background, it's not instantaneous. You don't hit a button and immediately get it. It does take some processing time, but I'm able to then do other things while it's running in the background. Right. It's been a huge time saver.
That's huge. And I'm actually shocked that it's that affordable. I'm going to have to look into that one myself. That's That's a good one. Everybody write that one down. I'm getting off this call. I'm getting off this recording and I'm going to go check that out. Maybe I'll take this recording and put it into Memento and test it out, Colin.
Let me know how you like it.
Okay, I will. All right. We're rounding home base here with a tactic that's working for you. Now, Colin, I don't have to tell you that things are tough right out there right now for marketers. They're all looking for that tactic that's going to push them over the top. This is not top of mind for me. So tell me why this is working for you and why this could work for our audience.
Absolutely. So what we saw historically in the addiction treatment and behavioral health space is you would pay to be featured in a listing. So in the same way that if somebody's looking for a restaurant, they'll go to Yelp or Urban Spoon or what have you. There are rehabs.com and drugrehabs.org and all of these different listings. And they're time consuming. Some of them are very expensive. And candidly, it's hard to track actual value without using a lot of tracking numbers. And then you're layering in all the complexities and the costs of adding tracking numbers, buying those tracking numbers, running reports every month or what have you, cross-comparing these listings. For Brightview with nearly 90 centers, that's a lot of tracking numbers. That's a lot of reporting. That's a lot of analysis to figure out what's working and what's not. So we've been fortunate in seeing a shift away from these general directories to more performance-based listings where we're not responsible for the tracking, the reporting, the optimization. It's actually on the listing agency to do that. So they're telling us, hey, this is performing really well with pass-throughs of patient calls. And then we're actually doing a performance-based exchange with them. So it's less about we're just paying to be on this list and more so we're actually engaging in a mutually beneficial way where patients who are uninsured or on Medicaid are able to contact us instead of this luxury treatment provider that otherwise would hang up on them. And then it actually works out well for the listing provider too, because they're serving that patient and they're actually extracting some value out of a call that otherwise would not have any value monetarily.
Got it. So I want to make sure I understand, because this is fascinating. And it is amazing how digital marketing has been just transformed by the data that is available to us now that's never been available before. So I want to make sure I understand. So you're on a list. When you go to decide if you're going to be on a list, you get to see metrics of what kind of action people take from the list, how many times they're clicking through, their audience size, that kind of thing. You're getting all that data on the front end, right?
So it's a little bit different than that. I'll use a specific example of ZocDoc is something that we've been relatively happy with and using the last probably coming up on a year now. So ZocDoc, we don't pay to be on their platform, but anytime a patient finds us on ZocDoc, so think about this, somebody's looking for a behavioral health doctor or an addiction treatment provider or something of that nature, and they go on Google, ZocDoc is doing the PPC, ZocDoc is doing the search engine optimization. They're the ones that are trying to get that traffic to their website. Once that person lands on their website, and it could be bariatrics, geriatrics, nephrology, you name it, behavioral health is just one of the things that ZocDoc does. Okay. So a patient goes on the ZocDoc platform and then they schedule with Brightview. Now that they've scheduled, then we are responsible for paying ZocDoc for that scheduled appointment. And again, it could be any provider versus us going out and paying to be listed and then them taking that and spending it on PPC, SEO, et cetera. So it's kind of flipped the way that the directory model works. And candidly, ZocDoc, I think, is doing a great job of it. And it's something that we'll continue to use in the future.
It's basically a pay-per-click, pay-per-lead method that they've got going, right? Is that?
Yes, very similar to that. Right. The big difference is this. Similar things were tried with like lead brokering and patient brokering and that sort of stuff, which is very dicey. So the difference is we're not paying just for particular insurances or things of that nature. Like I said, we're serving the uninsured and the Medicaid population to a large extent. So it's different than that, but it is nice to see the industry generally shifting away from pay to be listed to pay to actually encounter new people.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think as we talked about with the data that's now available, people just want that more. That's just, I think that's a pivot we can't come back from. I think that ship has sailed. That's the way we're going. I can imagine too, though, if you are serving a market that isn't normally served, you're actually benefiting the directory too, because those people are clicking and connecting, which makes all of their numbers look better and seem better, because those people were able to find a solution, not just the people that everybody else is getting, right? So basically you're helping their numbers too in the end.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's
right.
perfect.
Especially with us taking Medicaid, where
Right.
a lot of providers that are doing these type of performance-based listing partnerships do not take Medicaid. So those patients have a bad experience if they're not able to actually connect with a provider that takes their insurance.
Right. And they're a hit that's coming to the website that isn't clicking or doing anything, which isn't great for the listing provider. So
precisely,
it seems like it's a win-win here for everybody. I love that. It'd be interesting to know for a lot of our marketers out there, if there's something similar in your own industry that acts this way. So while this is a great example from the healthcare industry, you've got me thinking about similar kind of link back type scenarios that I can set up even for my own industry. So this is a really good tactic and a really good tip for everybody. So I'm going to go into recap mode because we are, believe it or not, coming in on the close of our time together. But as a trend, we talked about non-human differentiators, and we talked about that as a positive and a negative. The idea that by reducing humans, you're reducing friction, but also by reducing humans, you're kind of reducing that personal touch. And that can be a pro or that can be a con, depending on your audience, depending on the industry that you're in. So keep your eye on those non-human differentiators. Obviously, you want to lean into the positives and kind of minimize the negatives, but it's something to pay attention to. Assess your landscape. What are your non-human differentiators? It's a good trend to follow. The tech is Memento. I am closing out this window and rushing over to try it because it sounds amazing. And I'm very interested in our audience telling us other things that they're using in this same space too. You seem to love Memento. I know there's a lot of these tools out here, and I'm wondering how many people out in our audience have tried other things and are liking other things. So please, guys, jump in, share with us the video tools that you're using that are similar to this Memento one, so people have some ideas of other options in this space. And then we wrapped it all up with a tactic: performance-based listings. This is a corner that has been turned, and people are now listing their businesses in this space, and they're paying based on the results that they're seeing, which much better than, like you said, pay to be listed. So anything to you've been a wonderful guest, of course. I am going to make sure that I let everybody know that they if they want to look at Agorapulse, they're happy to do so. We have a link for everybody. We'll share it also in the chat. But I want to give you an opportunity to wrap this all up, because you touched on video and how you're using video as part of your podcast. I'm interested to know, because we talked about directories too. Are there any directories or any of your podcast channels that you think are working better now than others? Like, just thinking about listings and subscribing to podcasts. There's so many different places out there. Give everybody a tip on which one you think is doing better for you guys right now. We have a lot of podcasters out in the audience.
Definitely. I mean, far and away, we still see the majority of listens coming from Apple Podcasts, so folks listening on iPhones. But we have seen an increase in Spotify, which is interesting to me, because obviously Spotify is sort of operating system neutral. So you can listen to it on an iPhone or an Android or a desktop even. So that's been kind of interesting to see. But I think we'll still continue to see folks, as they're commuting to work or home from work, listening on their Apple devices. That's kind of the trend that we're seeing. What I am looking to do is really grow our footprint on YouTube. And I think that's what Memento is going to help us do over the long term, because that's allowing us to create more platform native content. Shorts is something that I need to get into experimenting with. And so, maybe
and everybody else, Colin, you and everybody else.
I know.
I wonder if Memento helps you with, it does. It helps you with creating short content. Does it allow you to do the short? Does it allow you to do a vertical view? I wonder if it lets you do that.
Yeah, you can do horizontal or vertical video with it, which is great.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that gives you so much flexibility. All right, well, I'm going to thank you for being here. I'm going to thank our audience for being here. I'm going to invite everybody here to connect with Colin on LinkedIn. As stated here, he is the VP of Marketing and Communications at Brightview Health. He's doing awesome things in this healthcare space. And I'm also going to invite you to subscribe to his marketing podcast, which seems Very cool. And it's going to be on YouTube, right? In little shorts, coming very soon.
Yeah, very, very soon.
That link is here on the screen, but we'll also put it in the comments for you. So again, feel free to reach out to myself. Feel free to reach out to Colin on LinkedIn. Grab a demo if Agorapulse, if you're interested in that. Subscribe to the podcast, and we will see you guys all back here again next week for another edition of 15.5.
Thanks so much, Teresa.
Yeah, it was great having you, Colin. Thanks for being here.